It's November 9th, 2021. Federal agents raid a house in Gainesville, Georgia. Inside a bathroom closet, they find a popcorn tin holding a circuit board that would trace back to 50,000 stolen Bitcoin with a worth of almost $3.4 billion.
For nearly a decade, it was one of the biggest mysteries in crypto. Who stole 50,000 Bitcoins, which would ultimately be worth more than $3 billion?
The man behind it all was a 30-something party-loving tech geek known to his friends as Bitcoin Jimmy. To them, he was generous, funny, and always surrounded by people. But in reality, he was just a lonely kid trying to buy friends. And for a while, it worked. Until his name started showing up on the radar of US investigators. He was one of the biggest crypto thieves in history. But before that, Jimmy was just another immigrant kid trying to figure it out. Born in Shanghai but raised in the US, he grew up between two worlds. One of hardworking parents chasing the American dream, and another of cruel classmates who saw him as an easy target. He was bullied relentlessly, called names, shoved in hallways, and ignored by teachers who didn't care. So he found refuge in the only place he could truly be himself, the internet. Online, Jimmy wasn't a target. He was smart, skilled, and respected. He taught himself to code, joining early tech forums and building small programs for fun. Behind the screen, he was powerful, and for once, people listened. But while his online life flourished, his real one kept falling apart. His parents divorced, and he drifted further into isolation. By the time he entered college at the University of Georgia, he was determined to reinvent himself. And he did, with alcohol, parties, and a burning desire to finally be somebody. It was around 2009 when Jimmy first discovered Bitcoin. Back then, it wasn't worth much, just a few cents. But to Jimmy, it was revolutionary. The idea that he could create digital money with nothing but his computer fascinated him. He started mining obsessively, filling up hard drives with Bitcoin wallets. Thousands of them. But as prices stayed low, he lost interest and moved on. Years later, when Bitcoin suddenly hit $30 each, Jimmy realized he had lost access to one of his early wallets. Tens of thousands of dollars, gone forever. But it also reignited his obsession. He dove deep into the world of crypto forums, learning everything from blockchain tracing to anonymity tools and the legendary darknet marketplace known as the Silk Road. The Silk Road was like something out of a movie, a hidden website where users bought and sold drugs, weapons, and fake identities using Bitcoin. Anonymous figure who called himself the Dread Pirate Roberts. Jimmy became fascinated, not just with the market, but with how it worked, how Bitcoin moved in and out, how transactions were logged, and more importantly, how they could be manipulated. And one night, as he was withdrawing Bitcoin from his Silk Road account, he noticed something strange. The withdrawal had been processed twice. He tested it again, then again. Every time the same glitch. Jimmy had just discovered an infinite money glitch in the Silk Road. Jimmy couldn't believe it. The system was flawed, and he was the only one who knew. He created fake accounts, ran automated scripts, and siphoned out massive amounts of Bitcoin before anyone noticed. In total, he drained over 50,000 Bitcoin worth millions back then, and billions today. For weeks, he watched the balances move slightly across the blockchain, hidden in plain sight. It was like robbing a digital bank, except his victims were already criminals. When the Dread Pirate Roberts finally caught on, he didn't even threaten Jimmy. He just wanted to understand how it happened. For a moment, Jimmy thought he might actually get hired by the man he stole from. But Jimmy knew better. He stopped, wiped his tracks, and vanished. To everyone else, he was just another anonymous user. But to himself, he was now rich. Unbelievably rich. He had $3.4 billion. That's enough to build another Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest tower, worth $1.5 billion. And make the winning bid on Leonardo da Vinci's Salvator Mundi, the most expensive painting ever sold, and still have over $1 billion left over to purchase a sports team, yacht, and fleet of private jets. It's almost beyond comprehension. By 2014, Jimmy had graduated college and was obviously living large. He bought a house, threw massive parties, and always had a crowd around him. According to some sources, gaining attention from women was among the key motivations of Zhang, who also happened to be autistic. Court documents show that he spent about $16 million of his stolen money on luxury lifestyle. Chartered planes and boats, luxury hotels, Lamborghinis, and a Tesla. All his friends thought he was this just mysterious crypto genius who'd gotten rich early. He became known for his generosity, picking up the bill for everyone, buying cars, gifting expensive tech. He finally had what he'd always wanted: friends, admiration, and attention. But it wasn't real. They loved the money, not the man. And deep down, Jimmy knew it. And yet, he couldn't stop. He leaned into his new identity, even creating an online alter ego called Loaded. Under that name, he bragged about having 50,000 Bitcoin, gave advice to crypto investors, and flexed his wealth online while pretending to be a sophisticated trader. The Loaded persona became legendary. People followed him, quoted him, and speculated about his true identity. No one realized that behind the screen name was the same guy who had stolen from the most infamous black market site in history. For years, Jimmy lived like that, part crypto king, part fraud, part lonely kid in a grown man's costume. Everything was going perfectly until one night in 2019. Jimmy called the police.
Clark County 911. What is your name, sir?
It's Jimmy Zong, Z-H-O-N-G.
He claimed someone had broken into his house and stolen a briefcase containing $400,000 in cash. He even told them it was savings from his crypto business. The police filed the report, but it landed on the desk of an IRS investigator who specialized in cryptocurrency crimes. Something about it didn't add up. Why would a supposedly legitimate crypto investor have that much cash lying around? Curious, the investigator started digging. Within weeks, they found something odd. Several of Jimmy's Bitcoin transactions were connected to old Silk Road wallets. One thread led to another, and suddenly the full picture began to emerge. Jimmy's fortune wasn't from early mining or smart investments. It was from theft, one of the biggest in internet history. For over a year, agents tracked his accounts quietly, building their case. Jimmy had no idea. He was still throwing parties, still bragging online, and still believing he was untouchable. In 2021, before dawn, federal agents surrounded his home. They broke through the doors and began tearing everything apart: walls, floors, furniture, looking for any trace of the missing Bitcoin. They found safes, cash, computers, and hidden drives. But the real jackpot came from a small tin of popcorn tucked away in a bathroom closet. Inside it was a tiny computer, encrypted but still active, and it contained access keys to tens of thousands of Bitcoin. Over $3.4 billion worth. Jimmy stood there, silent, as his entire secret world came crashing down. Years of hiding, lying, and pretending, all undone by one arrogant decision to report a robbery. He tried to act like a victim, and in doing so exposed himself as the criminal he'd spent a decade hiding. Jimmy's story shocked the crypto world.
Jimmy, how do you feel after this today? Jimmy, you feel like the judge was fair today? Why'd you steal the money, Jim?
After years of anonymity, his double life was laid bare. The party boy millionaire was in truth the same hacker who'd robbed the Silk Road blind. In 2022, he stood before a federal court and admitted to it all. After his guilty plea, the courtroom in New York was filled with quiet disbelief. The case had taken over a year to unravel, and prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office finally detailed how Zong had managed to pull off one of the most bizarre Bitcoin thefts in history.
The U.S. Justice Department seized more than $3.3 billion in stolen Bitcoin from a previously announced raid on the residence of James Zong.
Assistant U.S. Attorney David R. Felton described Zong as a highly sophisticated programmer who used his technical abilities to steal and conceal. But the defense painted a different picture, that of a lonely young man who had fallen into obsession, not out of greed, but out of compulsion. Zhong's lawyers argued that he had lived for years under crushing anxiety, knowing that the government could come knocking at any moment. Judge Paul G. Gardepi handed down the shocking sentence: 1 year and 1 day in federal prison. Zhong served his time at a low-security federal facility, but he was released earlier than expected in 2024 for good behavior, returning to his family's property in Gainesville, Georgia. The man is finally free again, even if it's without the billions that once made him someone. But the thing is, agents found just one tin of popcorn with billions inside. But what if that wasn't the only one?